Welcome to our deep dive into the dazzling
Dazzling.
and maybe even a little dizzying world of competitive dance.
It is
We're
weird.
tracing how this art form pirouetted its way from community stages to a billion-dollar industry.
And what's interesting for you is that this isn't just about fancy footwork.
Right.
We're about to uncover how a passion for dance intersects with some pretty major business moves, especially with the recent rise of DanceOne.
Right, DanceOne. They've been making headlines, and we've got a stack of articles and research here to help us understand why.
Yes.
But before we break down the billion-dollar business side,
Yeah.
let's rewind for a second.
Okay.
We've got to start with a little history.
Absolutely. Long before we had televised dance battles and national ranking systems, the dance world was a different landscape.
Okay.
Think local talent, showcases, community centers, even those legendary dance marathons in the 20s and 30s.
Wow.
The Apollo Theater's Amateur Night is another great example.
Right.
These were places where raw talent, not just polished routines, could shine.
It was more about the love of dance, less about the competition, right?
Exactly. And it wasn't just about individual dancers either.
Okay.
Think about the evolution of dance styles themselves.
Huh?
Many of them emerged from these social spaces, places where people could connect through movement and create something new.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
So when did this shift toward organized competition really take hold? Was there a specific turning point?
The year to remember is 1992, with the first World Dance Pageant,
Okay.
co-founded by a certain Gary Pate,
Okay.
a name you'll be hearing a lot about today.
Okay.
The pageant drew over 1,000 dancers in its first year alone.
Wow.
This wasn't just a recital. It was a declaration that competitive dance was ready for the big time.
Okay, so Gary Pate, he's clearly a key player here.
Absolutely. After the success of the World Boy, Dance Pageant Pate launched Star Power, which quickly became one of the biggest names in competitive dance hosting events, like Power Pack Next Star, and of course the World Dance Championship.
Wow.
Talk about a dance empire.
Wow. So this is where things really start to gain momentum.
Yes.
We're seeing the rise of these major players like Star Power, bigger events,
Yes.
and probably a lot more dancers and studios wanting in on the action.
Huge growth.
What happens next?
In the early 2000s, another important figure emerges.
Okay.
Gil Stralming, who founded Break the Floor Productions.
Okay.
Stralming brought a slightly different vision to the competitive landscape.
Okay.
He kept the excitement of competition, but he also emphasized education,
Okay.
incorporating conventions and workshops into these events.
So it becomes about more than just winning trophies.
Exactly. It's about nurturing talent, providing dancers with opportunities to learn from the best, and helping them grow as artists.
Right.
It's a move that resonated with a lot of dancers and studio owners who saw the value in this holistic approach.
So we've got this wave of competition coupled with a focus on education and artistry.
Right.
It seems like the perfect recipe for success, right?
You'd think so. But this is where our deep dive takes a turn. As companies like Star Power and Break the Floor Productions flourished, they began absorbing smaller competitions.
Okay.
And this is where things get really interesting, because it isn't a dancer or choreographer leading the charge anymore.
Okay, now you've got my attention.
Okay.
Who's stepping in to take the lead?
Get ready for it. Private equity.
Really?
TZP Group, to be exact, decides to waltz onto the dance floor.
Okay.
Now remember, private equity firms are all about strategy, identifying businesses with potential,
Okay.
and yes, maximizing those profits.
So while dancers are focused on perfecting their routines, there's a whole other world of investors looking at the bottom line.
Yes.
For someone unfamiliar with the world of finance, what does that really mean?
In simple terms, private equity firms like TZP invest in companies they believe have room to grow.
Okay.
They often make changes within the company to improve efficiency and ultimately profitability.
Okay.
Their goal is usually to eventually sell their stake in the company for a profit.
That makes sense. But I imagine this move might have sent ripples of concern through the dance community.
Yeah,
It's a bit of a culture clash, wouldn't you say?
it certainly raised some eyebrows. After all, when you hear private equity, you don't usually think artistic integrity.
Right.
Many wondered if this was the beginning of a shift where artistic vision takes a back seat to the bottom line. It's a valid concern. But remember, TZP Group has a reputation for strategic investments.
Right.
They're not just looking for a quick buck.
Right.
They're looking for long-term growth. And to do that, they made a few key moves that might surprise you.
Okay, so what did TZP do to calm those initial concerns? I imagine they knew they had to tread carefully, especially with a community as passionate as the dance world.
Their first move was a strategic one.
Okay.
They appointed Gary Pate,
Okay.
the visionary behind the World Dance Pageant and Star Power, as the CEO of the newly formed DanceOne.
Ah, so they put someone with deep roots in the dance community at the helm? A smart move for sure. It's like they're saying, we might be from the finance world, but we understand this world too.
Exactly. And they didn't stop there.
Okay.
They brought in Chris Gannon, who had been the COO of breakthefloor as the president and chief strategy officer of DanceOne.
Okay.
And to round out their leadership team, they made a splash by appointing Adam Shankman, the renowned choreographer and director, as their chief creative officer.
Wow, Adam Shankman. We're talking Hairspray Step Up, major Hollywood productions. Bringing him on board is a definite power move.
It certainly sends a message, doesn't it?
It does.
By appointing someone with Shankman's creative credentials, TZP signaled that they weren't just interested in the business side of dance. They valued the artistry as well.
Okay, so they've assembled this powerhouse team, a blend of dance veterans and business strategists. But what about the impact of this merger on the competitive dance landscape itself? What are some of the potential drawbacks of this level of consolidation?
That's where things get interesting for you, because whenever you have this level of consolidation in any industry, there are going to be pros and cons.
Sure.
One of the biggest concerns is the potential loss of individuality.
Okay.
When you have a few major players like DanceOne, smaller competitions might feel pressure to conform to a certain style or format to stay afloat.
So instead of fostering a diverse range of styles and approaches, it could potentially stifle creativity and innovation.
Exactly. There's also the concern that a focus on profit could overshadow the importance of artistic development and education, which, as we discussed, has been a crucial aspect of competitive dance.
Right, because at the end of the day, TZP Group is a business, and their primary goal is to generate returns for their investors.
Right, but it's not all doom and gloom.
Okay.
There are also potential advantages to this kind of consolidation.
Such as?
For example, DanceOne has more resources, which could lead to more standardized and potentially fairer competition experiences for dancers across different events. Imagine clearer rules, better facilities, and more objective judging criteria.
So a more level playing field for everyone. That sounds like a win for dancers.
It could be. And with greater resources, DanceOne can also host larger-scale events,
Okay.
providing dancers with greater exposure and opportunities. They can invest in things like professional-grade lighting and sound systems, which can enhance the overall experience for both performers and audience members.
Those are some definite perks, and it sounds like these benefits could trickle down to the dancers themselves, which is ultimately what matters.
Absolutely. Another potential advantage is increased safety and well-being for dancers.
Okay.
DanceOne has the resources to invest in things like proper sprung floors, on-site medical professionals, and stricter safety protocols. These are things that smaller competitions often struggle to provide consistently.
That's a really important point. Dance can be physically demanding, and ensuring the safety of the dancers should be a top priority for any organization, big or small.
Exactly. And remember, DanceOne's leadership team, headed by Gary Pate, has deep roots in the dance community.
Right.
They understand the importance of nurturing talent and fostering a love of dance.
So it's not as simple as saying consolidation is good or bad. It's a nuanced situation with both potential benefits and drawbacks.
And this is where things get really interesting, because the future of competitive dance isn't solely in the hands of DanceOne.
You're saying it's not just up to them to decide how this unfolds.
Exactly. Dancers, studios, and even fans have a role to play in shaping this evolving landscape.
So what can dancers and studios do to ensure their voices are heard in this evolving landscape, especially with a major player like DanceOne in the mix?
It starts with awareness,
Okay.
paying attention to how these changes are impacting dancer studios and the art form as a whole.
Okay.
It's about asking questions like, are competition fees becoming cost prohibitive for some dancers? Are certain styles being favored over others? Is there enough diversity in the judging panels?
It's about looking beyond the dazzling costumes and intricate choreography to see the bigger picture.
Exactly. And it's not just about pointing fingers or complaining. It's about constructive dialogue collaboration and finding ways to ensure that competitive dance remains a vibrant and inclusive space for everyone.
So what you're saying is that DanceOne's emergence, while significant, is just one chapter in the ongoing story of competitive dance.
Precisely. And like any good story, there are bound to be plot twists and unexpected turns along the way.
Yeah.
It seems like we've got this really complex situation, a lot of potential for both good and bad. And a lot of it comes down to leadership, how DanceOne actually uses its influence.
100%. Actions speak louder than words, and how they navigate this new landscape, well, that's going to be telling.
So we've explored the rise of DanceOne, right?
Yeah.
So from those early competitions to this, like, dance industry giant they are now. We talked about what could go really well, what could go wrong, the impact on competitive dance, all that.
Right. A lot to unpack.
But the big question remains, doesn't it? What does this mean for the future of dance?
It's easy to look at all this and feel, I don't know, a little overwhelmed. Yeah.
I get that. Like, maybe it's all about money now, right?
Yeah.
Big business calling all the shots. But I think the thing to remember is dance at its core.
Yeah.
It's about human connection, that passion, creative expression, and no corporation can just erase that no matter how big they get.
That's a good point. So it's not like DanceOne takes over and boom, the soul of dance just vanishes.
Right.
There's still room for like the dance community to have a voice, to have agency, all that.
Absolutely. Dancers, studios, choreographers, they're the ones who will really shape what dance becomes.
Okay, yeah.
Don't forget, DanceOne didn't come out of nowhere. They saw an opportunity in this vibrant, passionate community that already existed.
Yeah.
And that community, that's still the heart of it all.
It's kind of empowering when you think about it.
Right.
It means dancers, studios, they're not just pawns in all this. They can influence how this plays out.
Exactly.
What does it all mean for someone who's passionate about dance?
What's fascinating here, and this is something I hope you take away from this deep dive, is that it highlights this constant tension we see playing out across so many industries.
Yeah.
The balance between art and commerce, passion and profit.
It's a reminder that while the dance world is beautiful and exciting, there's also this very real business side to it.
Precisely. And as with any evolving art form or industry, it's up to all of us, dancers, educators, fans, to engage in these conversations, ask the tough questions, and advocate for what we believe in.
Because ultimately it's about the love of dance, right?
Yeah.
And ensuring that dance in all its forms continues to thrive.
Beautifully said. And who knows, maybe by having these conversations and asking these questions, we can help shape a future where the art of dance and the business of dance can coexist and even complement each other in meaningful ways.
I like the sound of that. So as you head back out into the world, dear listener, we leave you with this. How do you see the future of dance unfolding? And what role do you see yourself playing in that story?
It's a question worth pondering and maybe even choreographing a whole new routine around. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, keep dancing.